Hey YouTube, how's it going? It's Quentin here and welcome to tutorial number 32, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you guys how to add a sidebar to your website layout and also how to add a footer to the bottom of your website. And once we've done that, our website layout is pretty much complete, and yeah, let's jump straight into it. So I'm gonna hit refresh in the browser. Oops, maybe I need to save these files. Okay, so I just need to save my files over here. I've gone ahead and cleared out the code that would make the sidebar. So now that's all gone, and the footer as well, that's gone. And let's take a look at how to add that stuff back in again, right? So go over to my index file, and the first thing I want to do is go to the footer, and I want to add a class here of tm-footer. Taking care of the footer is just the easiest part, right? So what I want to do is just add a little bit of text here. So I'm going to type and copy, and basically if you type this little piece of code, what that does is create a copyright symbol. So this is just a HTML notation. A lot of special characters in HTML have something called HTML notation or HTML safe characters, basically. So if you want to make a copyright symbol, you can do something like that. If you want to add like a $sign or an ampersand sign, there are also shortcuts for that. So something like this will make an ampersand sign. But yeah, let's not get too focused on that. Let's continue and add in the rest of our content here. So I'm going to say copyright 2017. That's generally the kind of thing you would put in your footer, the copyright for your website. And you might also put in, like some people like to make columns in the footer with like links and everything, but I think that's something we can do in future when you're comfortable with actually building websites. Although a copyright for now is simple enough. So let's come back over to the browser, hit refresh, and you can see we do have the copyright showing up. It's just all the way down here in the bottom corner of the browser. That doesn't really look very good, so let's style this up a little bit. So what I want to do is take this class of tm-footer, jump back over to my CSS, and let's select that class and give it some styling. So I want to make it look a little bit similar to the heading or the header over here with just a white background and centered text. So I'm just going to give it a background of white, and we can say text align center. And for the last thing, I just want to add a little bit of padding. So we'll say padding 20 pixels, and that's just going to create a little bit of space, so it's not like pushed up right against the bottom of the browser. So let's hit refresh, and now you can see we've got a little bit of space underneath the copyright. We've got our copyright info over there. Technically you might actually want to say copyright and then whoever this belongs to. So in this case it belongs to me, or copyright your website 2017, whatever the year is, right? So let's save that now. That's probably a better looking copyright, right? Okay. Not that it really matters what's there, but yeah, now the footer has been completed. Now let's take a look at adding in a sidebar onto the side of our website. Now this is going to be a little bit tricky because I'm going to have to change some HTML that I previously created. But again, if you're struggling to get this right, you can download the code on Patreon. It's $1, and well, you can contribute $1 to me for a month, and then just download anything or all of the code from all of the tutorials, right? So let's take a look at the aside section over here, and what I'd like to do is place in some content within this aside tag. So I'm going to give this aside tag a class of tm-sidebar, because this is going to be our sidebar, and I'm going to create a little div inside of this with a heading 3, and I'm just going to type other, oh, let's say more stories, So typically, if you're creating like a blog website, you might have a sidebar on your website with links to some of the other blog articles, and that's exactly what I'm creating here with this little div. So other stories, and I'm just going to create a unordered list with some list items, and technically I should actually link these as well, but I'm just going to link that to hash. I'm going to add story 1. And then we can just copy paste this a couple times. So story 2 and 3. And that should kind of be enough text for the sidebar. The only problem is, as you can see, our sidebar is all the way down here at the bottom of the website. It's not displaying next to the website. So now we need to go ahead and basically make it display on the side there. So we need to adjust some styling. And in fact, we need to change a little bit of HTML. So basically, right now, we have this div called TM content, or it's got a class of TM content, but that goes all the way around our sidebar. And basically, what I want to do is have the content to the left, to the left, and the sidebar to the right. So that means that I kind of need to get this sidebar outside of the content div. So instead, what I'm going to do is take that class out, and then I'm going to create another div underneath this. So create a div there, and I'm going to give this div that same class of TM content. Let's just remove that closing div. And then everything from this section down to the closing tag of our article, I'm just going to indent that one line and then end off my div. So basically now our article and our section are all inside TM content, and then our aside is outside of the content, but everything is still within the container. So if we save this now and refresh, not much has changed just yet. You can see the article basically or the sidebar just kind of bumped down a little bit. But what I'd like to do now is float the content to the left and the sidebar to the right. So we can select our TM content class, which we already have a class set up for this, or a selector set up for this. And I'm going to set a max width of 70%. So the reason why I do that is because now when I refresh, the maximum width our section or our content is going to take up is 70%, which means we've got a nice big bit of space here for our sidebar. And what I'd like to do now is select that sidebar by creating another class over here. So let's select tm-sidebar. What did I call it? I did give it a class name. So TM sidebar. So let's copy that and just paste that here just to make sure, right? And I'm going to give this a max width of, let's say 25%. And the reason why is because I want to have some space between the content and the sidebar. So 25%. And what I'd like to do is also select any content within the sidebar, or any div within the sidebar, and turn that white. So background hashtag FFF and padding 30 pixels. Right, so the reason why I'm doing this is basically to turn this div white so that it actually has a background color. Right, so let's come back here and refresh. And now I've got a white div at the bottom, but we need to kind of float this over to the left-hand side. So to do that, we've already given it a max width of 25%, and we've got the TM content here of 70% max width. And so now I can add float left to float the content to the left, and then on the sidebar we can say float right to float that content to the right. Now let's refresh, and you can see we've got our content to the left, and our links are appearing to the right. But then we've also got a little problem here with the footer kind of pushing up to fit in this empty little space. And that's because whenever you have something floated to the left and something floated to the right, and then you want content to appear below that, you always have to clear the content. So what we could do is select this footer class, and I can just say clear both. And that's an easy way of just getting the footer below all the content again. So now it's down here. And that's just because the footer happens to be underneath the two things that we floated. But what I'd rather do is use something called a clear fix, which we've actually already taken a look at in, 2 videos ago. So let me just remove that clear both. And where is it? Here, TM header. This little fancy trick that I use to clear our menu items at the top of our page. We're going to use that same trick again. So I'm just going to copy paste this, and I pull this all the way down to the bottom over here somewhere. And I want to create a class called clear fix. And yeah, basically the exact same code. So we could probably use this on our menu as well. And I'm just going to copy that class, paste that class on the container class as well. So just add in a space so that it applies as 2 different classes. Save this now, hit refresh. Oopsie, something weird happened there. So it should actually apply. Did I save this? Okay. I don't think I saved my CSS file. That was the problem, right? So yeah, now if we scroll down, the footer is cleared at the bottom of the site. And we've still got a little problem here with our sidebar kind of not having any space above it, and also kind of not taking up the correct amount of width that I'd like it to. So let's go over to the sidebar selector over here, the sidebar class, and I'm going to add in a width of 25 pixels as well. Now the reason why max width kind of didn't cover that is because whenever you float something to the left or to the right, it just takes up the basically the minimum amount of space it can. So right now this div, I mean, it's not very big because story 1 is like this big, right? It's only that little tiny little space. So it's just taking up the smallest amount of space it possibly can. But if I set a proper width of 25%, then it means that the smallest width it should be is 25% of whatever the parent is. And then we also have a max width over here. It's basically just saying that make sure you don't get any bigger than 25%. So if I add things like padding or margins, these can add extra like width that might not be covered in width. It's a very confusing thing, but like if you read up about it, or the more you play around with it and the more you use this, you'll kind of realize when you add padding to a div and then float it to the left or float it to the right, it contributes to the actual width. So in fact, your width is 25% plus your padding plus so on. I could probably think of a better example to explain this, but for now, yeah, just realize that I'm using both of those because I don't want to be more than 25% width. Right, so let's come back here, refresh. So now the width is looking a little bit better, but we still have a margin issue. So our sidebar, we can basically just do the same thing we did for TM content and take those 2 margins of margin top 30 pixels, margin bottom 30 pixels, save that, refresh, and now we've got the spacing set up a little bit more correctly. And yeah, now we have a sidebar and we have a footer, and our website pretty much looks like a website for now. So that is all I have for you guys in this video, and I'll see you guys next time. I just want to send a shout out to my sponsors at Dev Mountain. They run a coding bootcamp with courses on iOS development, UX design, and web development, and they'll teach you everything you need to know to get a job within this field, and they'll do it within 12 weeks. So check out their website. The link is in the description below. And if you do contact them, make sure to tell them that I sent you. Special thanks to the guys whose names are on screen now. These guys contribute $5 or more on Patreon, and I really appreciate that. While you're still here, there are a few other things that you can do to help out. So follow me on social media and check out some more of my content, and I'll see you guys next time.